All right.
Ruckus, how could you
The price of self-respect.
possibly love white people so much?
It's easy. Have you ever looked at them? White man just a joy to be around. They smell like lemon juice and pledge furniture cleaner. And look
Yes,
at them. They gave us
20.
discipline, jobs, put structure in our lives, took us out the jungle. And what we do to show our appreciation? We march up and down the street. We vote. Carry on. Ingrates.
Look, I don't know if you heard, but racism is officially over. It only took 4 centuries of state violence, exploitation, and mass incarceration, but we finally did it. Look, just don't celebrate too loud now, alright? They'll call it ghetto and unruly. This channel became dedicated to black media analysis because of my obsession with black art and entertainment. And I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but it's because it's damn near impossible to separate racial politics from how we as black people interact with media. It doesn't matter what form it takes, be it music, film, dance, poetry, hell, even something as simple as streaming or podcasting. Every single expression of black media is shaped and contextualized by racial politics, whether or not that was the creator's intention and whether or not the audience even notices it on the surface. And I keep hammering this point in my videos because acknowledging that reality isn't just important, it's inescapable. These politics don't just shape our art, they shape us. They affect how we move, how we operate, how we present ourselves, and even how we succeed. And that success is never neutral. It's directly tied to the implicit roles you're boxed into as a black person in our media landscape. Even those roles aren't wide open. They come with boundaries, expectations, and a silent set of rules. You end up walking a really scary tightrope, one that forces you to balance your authenticity against white comfort. Lean too far into honesty and you're branded angry, radical, or ungrateful. Pull back too much and you're seen as safe, at the expense of hollowing yourself out to fit inside an acceptable comfort zone. So what do you do when you're in that position as a black person navigating these spaces? Do you play by the rules, sanding yourself down
Play Among Us with rage? I wasn't invited.
just enough to fit in? Or do you push back and risk being branded as too extreme? Well, there's always a third option. One that pays well, works every time, and never fails to get applause.
Just be respectful and don't be a
That's
pussy.
right, kids, you can be a
Black Americans do not know how to resolve basic conflicts.
being a is an easy way to secure a bag. It's the oldest hustle in the book. Trade your people's dignity for a seat at the table, even if that seat is just for show. And in a media landscape where white comfort is currency, nothing pays better than telling racist white folks exactly what they want to hear and showing them exactly what they want to see.
I want to tell every single African American person that's watching this video, you are not oppressed. Do not believe the lie. You are not a victim. You are a victor.
And that's why it's important to be precise here, because isn't just an insult we throw at another black person we don't like or disagree with. It has a very specific meaning. Is a black person who deliberately performs or promotes harmful stereotypes about their own community, not out of ignorance or passivity, but as a deliberate act to gain approval, protection, or profit from white audiences and institutions.
Okay. If this is the definition of coons,
It doesn't matter.
raccoon. If that's the definition of raccoon, you can't always say people are raccoons, you know? Because
matter the decade or the time period. White institutions reward it, white audiences eat it up, and the system is built to amplify it. It's effective because it props up the same lies that keep racism alive, validating and entertaining racism while reassuring those in power that nothing really needs to change.
Let freedom ring from every hill and every molehill in Mississippi, from every state, every city, every village, and every hamlet. And when we let freedom ring, we will be able to speed up that day for all of your children.
That's why it's so damn profitable. So long as racism exists, so will it. But that's what simultaneously makes it so dangerous. Because every time a tap dances and performs, it doesn't just reflect on them, it reflects on all of us. Their words and actions become ammunition, recycled as proof that racism is exaggerated or that black struggle is self-inflicted. And since so much of depends on white approval, it almost always gravitates.
Okay. So I don't think a lot of black struggle is self-inflicted, but I do believe that a lot of black people don't do anything to counter it. Like, the situation and the scenario you're in, granted, is a structure of the oppression you felt, but you're not doing anything to counter it. You're becoming a victim of your environment and then complaining about it. Like, I get it, man. It's hard. Life is tough. But at the same time, you can't choose the cards you're dealt. You can only choose how you play them. And people play the cards the wrong way all the time. And then cry racism and shit. Like, I get it, dog. I'm not sitting here saying niggas not racist, niggas not oppressive. But there's ways to beat that.
It's towards conservatism, the politics most invested in pretending racism is over and inequality is just about personal responsibility.
You know that white supremacy and white nationalism ranks nowhere near the top of the issues that are facing Black America. And the reason that you are bringing them up in this room is because it is attempt to make the election all about race as the Democrats.
Not in my case.
That's what makes a so valuable.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I don't like Candace Owens, but you can't use this as an example to call her a raccoon. This is terrible videography. Because what she's saying is facts. White
America. And the reason
white, like what does she call this shit?
Nationalism is no
White nationalism is not the greatest problem facing Black Americans. It's the fucking education level, health, crime. Like we have a lot more problems than white people, bro. Like, and it's like a lot of people want to just blame white people for everything. And don't get me wrong, they are definitely the proponent of a lot of shit. But we also ourselves have to look inside and be like, yo, how can we fix this? Like, what?
ranks nowhere near the top of the issues that are facing Black America.
Not at all, bro. Who do you think caused the stuff that you're talking about? And my thing is, have we not realized that complaining and crying and expecting the people who caused the shit that we're tripping about to change it isn't gonna get us anywhere? We have to change ourselves. Like, it's the same thing as like, okay, people believe a stereotype about you. How do you defeat that? Oh no, I'm just gonna be the stereotype and be mad at you for believing it. No, you out here, you operate in a manner that's counter the stereotype. You know what I'm saying? Would you want to play Among Us with Rock Out Lee? He is desperate. Hey man, I'm not so charged for some content like that. You know what I mean?
And the reason that you are bringing them up in this room is because it is attempt to make the election all about.
Get to see a black face echo their talking points back at them, wrapping white comfort in black credibility. The more that caricature circulates, the more it solidifies until it hardens into policy, into prejudice, and into everyday justifications for inequality. Isn't just self-destructive, it's collective collateral damage. The individual cashes the check, but the community pays the price. Be it minstrelsy or political pundits, we've always looked down on the.
You're right, but the reason we have to do that in the first place is a result of white supremacy, and I never discounted that. But now what? Now that we've established that topic, now that we established that white supremacy is the reason why we're here, what do? Because white supremacy, right, is only an issue when it's negatively affecting us, right? Nobody gives a fuck about white supremacy when they're using it to push the negative ideals and stereotypes of black people in rap music. We sing along and dance to it. Like, nobody cares about that shit. You know? That's my thing. Like, we all, like, all right, word, racism is real. There's problems that we're all facing, but let's look at how we handle these problems. What are we doing to counter these problems? We see problems, and then the answer is not, oh, we need to adjust. It's, oh, well, they made it like this, so this is just how it is, and now it's not our fault. And granted, it's not your fault that it's the way it is right now, currently, but it's your fault that you're not making a change. You know what I mean? Like,
folks who choose to perform like this, and for good reason. But what do you do? In a digital age where these bad faith actors aren't confined to a single stage, but endless screens, what can you even do? Wait, combat this? Fuck that. Why beat them when you can just join them? Being a is easier than ever before.
It's 2018 in America. Does racism exist?
Absolutely not. And it has never existed.
whoa! Okay. See? This nigga's a raccoon.
Verified _join $.
People like TK just want to look forward. We have established the matter. Now, how do we fix it? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we already know white supremacy is a real thing. We already know that there's oppression via the majority people in the country. Cool. We get that, right? Understand. Cool. Now, where do we go from here? How do we change that? Do we continue to push the narratives and ideas that have left us in this area, right?
It has never.
Wait, whoa! That's the thing. Like, I feel like everybody misses the fact that a lot of the things that we want change isn't white people doing it to us. Now, did they put us in the position to perpetrate these actions? Absolutely. But we still are the people taking these actions. Yeah, the CIA funneled crack into the black community. Who was selling niggas crack? It wasn't a white man in a suit. It was other niggas. And granted, I understand when you're in a state of poverty and you live in a place where, you know, it's hard to get money and easy money comes around, it's easy to fall victim to that. But just because it's easy to fall victim to that doesn't mean it's right. I'm not giving you a pass for that. Like, oh my God, my life was hard, so I decided to sell crack to my grandmother. That doesn't get any, you don't move me, bro. That and then also now your complaints about white supremacy and the things that we're dealing with doesn't, like, it doesn't, like, I don't feel no way because you had an opportunity to say, yo, I'm not gonna fall for the fucking facade. I'm not gonna fall victim to the shit they're trying to push because I know this isn't gonna benefit my people, and you still did it anyways. Like, what? This is what I'm saying, bro. But the thing is, if you tell people, oh, that's not a good thing, it's all your stifling art and creativity, and this is just how we express ourselves. All right, well, the expression that you're giving off is leading to the stereotypes that they have.
Made up word.
People jump so quick and they tense up at the thought of racial profiling. It's so wrong, it's so wrong. What is marketing? It's profiling. That's what marketing is.
White supremacy and the KK.
So now the price of self-respect, he's not lying. And that's the thing that irritates me. Like I get it. You might not agree with what he's saying, and it might come off as insensitive to the issues that black people deal with, but he's not lying. You just don't want to accept the reality of the way the world works. I feel like there's two types of people, bro. Like, there's people who believe that the world should be a certain way, and if it's not that way, then, oh my God, word. And then there's people that, all right, the world should be a certain type of way, but this is the way the world is, and I have to navigate and manage that. Like, yo, like, a lot of people are delusional, bro.
Quick, and they tense up at the thought of racial profiling. It's so wrong, it's so wrong. What is marketing?
Marketing is quite literally profiling. You're going based off of a demographic of people and what will get them to fuck with this shit. For instance, rap music. I love rap. I listen to it. I don't give a fuck. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm better than the rest of y'all. I listen to rap music. But what do they talk about? What music sells? Who's the hardest underground rappers? What are they talking about? Drugs, hoes, money, gang violence. And then people are like, oh, well, you know, it's just they're expressing themselves in the life they lived. Man, go rap about being better or something. But nobody wants to hear that. You know what I'm saying? Like, what?
Profiling. That's what marketing is.
White supremacy and the KKK. Really? That's what you guys want me to be concerned with this week? Do I look like an idiot?
As long as racism is profitable, there will always be a demand for some eager, happy-go-lucky
Okay, yeah, but what Batteries is contexting, he's trying to use the justification of marketing for racial profiling in the black communities from cops. We have to use the context right. I understand that, and that's fair. right? And I'm not saying that anybody should be racially profiled, right? But, and you're gonna think I'm a raccoon for saying this, but I am a realist. At the end of the day, I make assessments based off of evidence given and actual shit that's happening, right? What's up, Nor? If, for instance, right, I'm not from an area. Let's say, cool, I'm not from an area. I go to Chicago. I listen to the music they push out. I hear the things they say. I'm a young black man in Chicago. You don't think I myself am racially profiling my own community? Like, do you not, like, it's the thing is, like, people themselves don't like racially profiling and then racially profile other black people. Let's be real. You see niggas standing outside at the gas station with shiesties on, you think them niggas on fuck shit. You yourself, you're not a white person, you're a black person. You quite literally just racially profiled another black person, but because it's you're like, all right, well, it's fine, right? But it's the same thing. Only difference is they have the power to use that racially profiling to actually, like, affect people's lives, but it's still racially profiling. You get what I'm saying? So now we have to change the way we think about it. Instead of viewing people based off the appearance that they give you, right? Because we're humans. Human nature is to see something and judge it and be like, okay, danger, non-danger, right? Instead of doing that, give people the opportunity to express who they are and learn who they are so you see it.
You are willing to sell it back with a smile. Playing into negative racial tropes is one of the fastest ways to get paid, but that money doesn't come free. With it comes the cost of harming your own people, alienating yourself from your community, or worst of all, selling your own dignity. With that being said, whip out your tap dancing shoes and get ready to dive in. And together, let's find out if all the wealth, fame, and influence is worth the price of self-respect.
I agree with you, 22.
Save me. Wasn't nothing wrong with slavery. At least we got good food back then.
As usual, before we get started, let's establish something. I want to further clarify our definition of what makes it and why it's not always the same thing as a black person.
Read what Nor asked. What did Nora ask? You want to get on Among Us lobby with me and Lee. Nah, I love both of y'all, little niggas. I genuinely do. I think you both are amazing individuals with spirit and pride and a desire to reach heights that I know you will get to someday. But no, I don't want to play Among Us with you niggas. For a few reasons, and I'm gonna list them. One, I just don't think that'd be fun. I don't think we'd get any actual gaming done. It'd be more so niggas yelling at each other, talking over each other, and not really getting to the point. Wouldn't be a good lobby. Two, we're not really trying to play Among Us because we want to play Among Us. We're playing Among Us because Rage and them are playing Among Us, and it's like, you know, monkey see, monkey do. And as much as I love Baboon Babble as the next guy, I'm not Curious George, and you're not George in the Jungle. And then three, it's like, you know, we get on that game. I sit there, I listen to you niggas bicker. And then I sit there and I stare at the camera and I'm like, is this really what I want to do with my time? But I love y'all, you know? So I do hope that Among Us lobby is fun. And, you know, I really do think y'all should go figure that out. But yeah, man, I think I'm okay though. I love y'all though. Have fun.
Being conservative, as I'm sure there's some black conservatives out there just waiting to pounce on this video and cry with the whole independent thinker.
He'd rather be on
Being
Arc Raiders,
black and
actually.
conservative doesn't by default make you a Despite there being a hell of a lot of overlap between the two, the difference lies in intent and performance. There's a lot of black folks that favor conservative politics out of ingrained survival. Centuries of this nation's history have taught us that black dissent, resistance, or even just demanding equity is often met with brutal repression in both violence and policy. For some, leaning into conservatism is less about selling out and more about seeking safety, stability, or trying to navigate a system that punishes resistance. Mind you, this logic is still extremely counterproductive and harmful. There isn't any reputable data that shows that conservative policies benefit black Americans economically or socially on any mass scale. It just denotes how some of it can still come from a place of good.
If I told TK hop on Among Us, he'd hop on with me. Donnie, yo, I be trying to, like, I had to mute you on IG because you be sending me bullshit reels, bro.
Faith. But a deliberately performs or promotes harmful narratives about their own people, not because they believe it in good faith, but because it buys them approval, protection, or profit from white audiences and institutions. They're not just conservative, they're performers. They're actively putting on a show, embodying roles that serve oppressive systems while personally benefiting them. It all boils down to their intent and performance. It's deliberate, it's a show, it reinforces racist myths, and most importantly, it's transactional. The individual trades dignity and community for validation and reward. That's not survival. That's a spineless, shameless spectacle. A spectacle that, as we're about to see, has no universal form.
Okay, and I agree that that is spineless and is a spectacle, but then if that's the case, you could call anybody. Actually, a lot of rappers, a lot of social media members, and a lot of the people pushing the narrative of black people are loud, violent, aggressive, outrageous, crazy, obnoxious, are raccoons. Some of your favorite streamers are raccoons. If that's the definition of the word, a lot of y'all favorite streamers are raccoons. They're doing it for, like I said, monetary value. Do you think I'm a raccoon? No, real shit. Because think about it, chat. Let's be honest. What do most streamers do? Act out, wild out, bug out, right? And now, while it's not a black thing only, who's copying black people? The streamers up and coming are trying to do the things large, famous black creators are doing, right? And what does that do? It creates the stereotype that black people are loud, obnoxious, don't care for things, destructive, they destroy shit all the time, violent. And then we're surprised when these are the stereotypes that are being pushed, but we're the ones perpetuating them. You get what I'm saying? It's like, what's your argument? My argument is that the people that we watch and praise and uplift are all raccoons, for the most part. They're all tap dancing, perpetuating stereotypes about black people for entertainment purposes, and we co-sign it because we like them. Right or wrong? Because the definition of raccoon is perpetuating and pushing negative stereotypes about your people for your own monetary value or monetary gain. Right? Am I wrong? Am I tripping?
To kick us off, we're gonna dive into the main archetypes that like to perform, exploring not just how and why they're so lucrative, but how.
Oh, so he did add streamers in there. Okay, cool. I respect it. I like this video.
How they ultimately do nothing more than
more so about intent. I mean, everybody's intent in content creation is to make money, so
benefit white supremacy at the end of the day. Looking to cash in your dignity for.
Doesn't that go for every streamer regardless of race when it comes to stereotypes? Yes, but for instance, let me make a little analogy. A white person doing this won't be seen in the same light as a black person doing this because the black person has been pushed as that narrative for so long. Like, and then also all they're going to say about the white person is he's copying the black person. He's trying to be like them. Exact. I.e. Aiden, right? Aiden does a lot of shit the other nigga streamers do, but they don't view Aiden the same way they like view a Speed or a Kai or that, because he's white. So all their in their head, he's like, oh, he's just recycling the behaviors he's seeing from his peers. You know what I mean?
Or a few coins in a milkshake? Want to make white folks laugh and hate you at the same time? Don't worry, I've got just the right pair of white gloves for you.
Enough is enough, and that's what I've had a abundance of.
Every has a role to play, a mask that makes them profitable and entertaining to white audiences. And while there are many variations, the two most consistent archetypes are the jester and the knight. Different masks, same purpose. Whether they clown or crusade, both archetypes ultimately serve the same role, and that's reassuring white audiences that racism is either laughable or non-existent. First, we have the jester, the oldest and most recognizable archetype of history. The entertainer who survives by making a spectacle of themselves, often at the expense of their own people. At its root, the jester is a performer who embodies and exaggerates racist caricatures so that white audiences can laugh, feel at ease, and avoid confronting the realities of black life. And this figure isn't new. It stretches back to the minstrel shows of the early 19th century, where white performers would don blackface and prance around the stage mocking blackness, painting it as ignorant, lazy, and buffoonish. You know, a real staple of American culture. White folks just couldn't get enough of this shit. I don't know, it was like the 19th century version of Friends. Around the 1830s, we get Thomas Daddy Rice, who popularizes his character Jim Crow, a shuffling, grinning, broken English caricature of a rural black man. A caricature Rice himself loosely based on a disabled slave he had once seen. The caricature would soon become a symbol for black inferiority, so powerful and popular that the name itself would later be used to brand an entire system of segregation. But alongside Jim Crow, you also had Zip Coon, only this one was based on a city living dandy. While Jim Crow was a lazy, sloppy buffoon, Zip Coon was a ridiculous fraud. He was overdressed, misused big words, and worst of all, thought of himself as equal to white people. The joke was that no matter how hard he tried, he could never rise above his place. These two became the blueprint of the jester. You now have a role where a black figure exists only to reassure white audiences that blackness is inherently laughable, inferior, and unserious.
Now chat, when you think of that, who do you think of? When you hear shit like this, what comes to mind?
From the very beginning, the jester wasn't just about entertainment, it was about control. Eventually, black performers themselves are pushed into these roles, forced to mock their own people just to gain access to stages otherwise closed to them. The costume changes with the decades, but the script remains the same. You see the jester morph into Hollywood, on the big screen with Stepin Fetchit and Willie Best.
What's your name? On the time, bro.
Here's something to worry about. If you white, what you mean? They won't hurt us because we slaves. They's fighting for us. But if you white and southern, then you the enemy.
Oh, don't pay him no mind. Go on, children, get in there and hide.
On radio with Amos and Andy, and even in variety shows with Rochester Anderson.
Kingfish, you mean to say that you is an actual doctor?
Well, I ain't been blabbing it around, but I've been taking a correspondence course in doctoring.
He's the funny black friend, the clownish entertainer, the loudmouth comic relief who eases racial tension with jokes and dance moves. Different eras, different packaging, but the function never changes. Blackness was safe only when it was a punchline. Black people are tolerated as long as they keep the jokes coming and never demand too much seriousness. Today, the jester thrives in the digital era. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, entire careers are built around parroting black culture for white clicks. Sometimes he leans into exaggerated AAVE or quote-unquote hood stereotypes for laughs. Other times he positions himself as the safe black person who it's okay to make racist jokes around. You want an N-word pass? Don't worry, he'll give you one.
The league! What is he like there? He got a best league off all the... Yo, come on, boy. Oh, Ray, don't give a fuck.
Damn. Shit.
Nigga, please.
Nigga, please.
He might even make fun of real issues such as police brutality or systemic inequality, as if centuries of oppression, violence, and pain are nothing more than material for a punchline. It's how we get King Batch making an entire career off of chicken, watermelon, and crime jokes.
For a bottle of lotion a day, you can help these ashy African-American children. Please call now.
I made it out the hood, baby. Welcome back.
For the next 12 hours, all crime is legal.
Today's a good day.
It's how you get iShow Speed barking like an animal while also letting his non-black fans call him and make racial jokes at his expense.
What's this?
This is cotton. Look.
Cotton?
Cotton.
I never got gifted cotton.
You got nothing else?
Why do you give me cotton?
Yeah.
W give tax.
Open that shit. You gonna love it. You gonna love it. You gonna love it. You
What's this?
gonna love it. You gonna love it. You gonna love it. Wait. You gonna love it. Come here, motherfucker.
Master, I'm tired of picking cotton. Please give me another job.
That's how you get all these tomfoolery ass niggas on TikTok eating food in a messy manner while dancing like chimpanzees.
This nigga name is Dancing Gorilla too.
Hell, this nigga is literally calling himself the Groovin' Gorilla. You cannot get any more on the nose than this. It doesn't matter the variant or the medium, in every form the jester's job is to turn blackness into a spectacle. He makes racism easier to consume because it's coated in
What's up, Gia?
Laughter. And that is why he works. The jester works because he makes racism feel good. He doesn't challenge the audience, he comforts them. Instead of forcing white American
Are you down to play rock, paper, scissors right now? Real quick. On video call. What? Wait. Ain't TK get head on stream? I did not. Wait, what? How?
audiences to face the ugly reality of racism and systemic inequality, the jester flips those realities into comedy. Pain becomes parody, suffering becomes slapstick. The cruelty of anti-blackness is softened, wrapped in laughter, and handed back as entertainment. The audience can consume stereotypes without guilt because, at the end of the day, it's all just a joke. But just a joke is exactly what makes it powerful. Laughter disarms. When racism comes dressed as comedy, it doesn't feel like hate, it feels like permission. You're
What's
not
up,
laughing
fish?
at black people, you're laughing with them. You get a pass. Hell, after all, the black guy telling you the joke wants you to laugh. White audiences can laugh at caricatures of blackness without guilt because humor provides cover. And that thin veil of irony makes the jester effective, turning mockery.
He's giving bits to whoever beats me in rock, paper, scissors, basically. Alright, hold on. Enjoy stream, brother. Thank you, man. Appreciate the 25 bits. I will definitely enjoy stream. I will definitely enjoy stream. How do you know he's Jewish?
Into entertainment, and entertainment into normalization. But the jester is only one side of the coin. We then have the knight. While one is an entertainer, the other is an enforcer. Unlike the jester, the knight doesn't play for laugh, instead aligning themselves with whiteness and defending the very systems that harm their own people. They're the moral enforcer, preaching discipline, respectability, and obedience. If the jester reassures white audiences that blackness is laughable, the knight reassures them that the real problem isn't racism, it's other black people and their culture. Just as minstrelsy created the blueprint for the jester, the knight was born from slavery itself. On the plantation, you had slaves that were elevated above others, not out of kindness or merit, but as a tool of control, being rewarded with scraps of comfort for loyalty and used to police other enslaved people. You begin to see the earliest form of the knight, a black figure whose very survival depended on protecting the master's interests. After emancipation, this role transforms. White elites paraded formerly enslaved people who praised their masters as benevolent, framing bondage as a civilizing institution. For example, pro-slavery writers like John B. Gordon and James Henry Hammond eagerly published quote-unquote testimonies from freedmen claiming slavery had been a blessing. You also had figures of black colonization movements like John B. Russwurm and William Hannibal Thomas, who assured whites that black freedom meant separation, not equality. And on the more extreme end, you had physicians like Samuel A. Cartwright, who promoted pseudoscience like drapetomania, the idea that a slave wanting to be free is a form of mental illness. He relied on black collaborators to validate his false claims about black laziness and inferiority. Those early versions of the knights were nothing more than useful props. They told white audiences exactly what they wanted to hear, that racial hierarchy was natural, just, and even divinely ordained. By the time we get to the 20th century, the knight evolves into the voice of respectability politics. You see it in figures like Bill Cosby and Shelby Steele, who, while groundbreaking in some ways, also doubled as the poster child for middle-class assimilation, embodying the idea that accepting black humanity depended on proper dress, diction, and morality. In politics...
Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you, I can't call that raccoonery because, like, what? You calling it... The fact that we said that speaking proper, dressing like proper, and operating like civilized human beings and not outrageous like individuals that they expect us to be is raccoonery is insane to me.
You get Clarence Thomas and Thomas Sowell, two uncles whose influence came not from serving black communities, but from reassuring white conservatives. Thomas used the Supreme Court to gut civil rights protections under the guise of colorblindness, while Sowell built a career downplaying racism and blaming inequality on black culture and behavior. And in popular media, you often see the knight as a direct foil to the jester, the serious preacher, the disciplinarian father figure, the bootstrap philosopher who scolds poor black people while ignoring the systemic barriers stacked against them. Today, the knight thrives as a commentator. He's the black conservative pundit on Fox News, PragerU, and the Daily Wire. He assures white America that police brutality is blown out of proportion, that systemic racism isn't real, and that black people are simply victims of their own bad choices.
Stop resisting arrest. I don't know how many times we
TK
gotta say
random
that. I don't know why
question,
people
you ever
aren't
use your
getting
nut
it.
to
We
clear
shouldn't
your
even be
skin?
having conversations about police. There's no such thing as police reform and any of these things. If you people, black people, white people, I don't care who you are, mostly it's black folks, why are we going to reform the police department just to end up shooting you again because you are resisting arrest, trying to run police officers over with cars? I don't know if do y'all think bullets cannot hurt you?
Is there a big problem with police brutality and black people? No, there's not. Not from my point of view.
He's the YouTube grifter lecturing about quote-unquote black fatigue and how ghetto blacks are gonna get us all killed.
These black people are really struggling, and they're turning into these maniacs. It seems like they don't do anything right. They're obnoxious, they're rude, they're inconsiderate, aggressive, cruel.
I mean, I don't think he said anything racist. He didn't denigrate. He said, this is why people feel
He
that
just
way
described
based
the
on
other
these
race
things.
of people. He did not describe, he described niggas, not black people.
I mean,
I think there is a big difference. I think that I've met a lot of black people and I've met a lot of niggas.
He's even the LinkedIn-style black excellence influencer preaching.
Calling Kevin Samuel raccoon is the final tipping straw for me on this video. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's fucking insane. So anybody who doesn't allow for degeneracy or doesn't want negative stereotypes to be continued and would like black people to stop being victims of their own like environments and instead changing is a raccoon.
That systemic racism can be conquered with enough hustle and positivity. Doesn't matter what he wears, it can be a suit or a hoodie. The performance is the same. The knight positions himself as proof that black success is possible if you just follow the rules, and if you don't, well, that's your fault. His job isn't to liberate his people, it's to discipline them on behalf of the system. The Knight works because he cloaks anti-blackness in dignity. Where the Jester weaponizes laughter, the Knight weaponizes morality. He doesn't need to make white audiences laugh, he makes them feel righteous. By wagging his finger at black communities, he reassures white America that inequality isn't structural, it's personal. Racism doesn't have to be confronted because the Knight insists the real problem is us. And that's the trick. He allows racism to hide in plain sight. If the Jester tells white audiences, "You're not racist, it's just a joke," then the Knight tells them, "You're not racist, you're right." Every inequality becomes a morality tale. Prisons are full not because of over-policing, but because black men lack quote-unquote values. Schools fail not because of gutted funding, but because black parents don't care enough. Poverty isn't the product of wage theft or housing discrimination, it's just laziness. The Knight takes systemic violence and translates it into individual failings, making oppression look earned and deserved. Now, these two types of may seem like polar opposites, but both the Jester and the Knight serve the same court. They divide the work of maintaining the racial order. The Jester turns injustice into entertainment, making it easier to laugh at than confront. The Knight takes the same injustice and recasts it as a moral failing, assuring audiences that inequality is the product of bad choices, not bad systems. Together, they work in tandem, softening the blow and then justifying it. One minute you laugh, next minute you're nodding your head in agreement. And this duality survives because it's profitable and useful. Media platforms, corporations, and political institutions reward content that either entertains without threatening power or dignifies inequality as discipline. That's why the Jester thrives in viral clips and comedy routines, while the Knight is elevated in op-eds, think tanks, and news commentary. Both are monetized, both are incentivized, and both are rewarded precisely because they stabilize the racial order rather than challenge it. The impact is real. That distortion of public perception shapes policy. When the Jester normalizes brutality and the Knight reframes systemic barriers as personal failings, the result is paralysis. No need to reform and no appetite for justice. In practice, this translates into underfunded schools, harsher policing, and the erosion of civil rights, all justified by the story that black suffering is either laughable or deserved. In the end, it's just like we said earlier, two sides of the same coin. One makes oppression palatable, the other makes it principled. Neither disrupt the system. And until the structures that reward these performances are dismantled, both will keep tap dancing to the bank. But identifying only take you so far. Let's say you see the harm, damage, and destruction this causes, and none of that phases you. In fact, you see how lucrative it is and want to make some money off of it. Well, you morally bankrupt motherfucker, I have just the news for you. This next section is going to teach you exactly how to sell your soul. I'm going to teach you step by step how to cook. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the only channel brave enough to talk.
So my thing is, like, and I'm not against this, and I like the video because it allows you to understand things from a point of view that makes it easy to explain. But I've always been of the mindset that I don't give a fuck how you complain about something. Tell me a solution. How do we fix it? How do you fix it and adjust the problem? It's like, the thing is, like, I feel like a lot of people have grievances, but nobody has answers. Like, yeah, we can complain, oh, this is raccoonery, whatever, but gang, what are you gonna do to change it? Or are you just complaining for the sake of complaining?
Talk about real issues in the black community. Today, we're gonna react to More Sexy Red. Now, I know we've talked about her in 14 different videos already, but the views, oh baby, the views let me know you guys haven't had enough. If Massa catch me out here, I'ma get in trouble. I'ma teach you how to be one of the good ones. That way you get to sleep in a big house like me. Earlier, we detailed how to spot a how they take many different forms, and ultimately what their purpose is in regards to white supremacy. However, in this section, we're gonna teach you how to, specifically how to be a knight, essentially what tactics they use and how they lure in moderate and more conservative leaning black folks. The reason why we're focusing more on the night is because it's the more lucrative and harder to spot out of the two. See, the jester is obvious. He's loud, he's clownish, and 9 times out of 10 you can spot him shucking and jiving a mile away. But the knight? He carefully cloaks his rhetoric behind dignity, posture, and quote-unquote common sense. He disguises himself as someone trying to help black people get their act together, when in reality, he's just there to play on already pre-existing tropes. And that invisibility is what makes him just as dangerous as he is lucrative. So consider this your field manual, a little how-to guide for becoming the most lucrative form of coon, the bootlicker, the sellout, the uncle, the knight. We'll break down the 3 main steps of performance, the tricks that make it effective, and most importantly, the damage it causes. Because this hustle may help you get in the big house, but it comes at the expense of all of us still stuck in the field. First, we have step 1, gaining your audience. And you do so by playing into respectability politics. You need a socially conservative audience of people, folks that are quote-unquote fed up with the current state of black culture. They can be black conservatives, they can be black moderates with traditional values, hell, they can even be church folks. They just have to believe that the biggest barrier to black liberation is black culture. Your job is to feed their frustration by antagonizing the culture itself. Remove any sort of nuance from your argument. You need to frame hip-hop not as an art form, but as the cause of community destruction. That crime exists because of rap lyrics, not because of poverty or over-policing. You shame clubbing, twerking, block parties, even marching bands as undignified spectacles. Reduce them to proof that black people quote-unquote don't know how to act. You police language, paint AAVE as defective English rather than a legitimate dialect with history and grammar. You weaponize faith. This is the big one right here. Use scripture to shame black folks who don't fit into narrow molds of chastity or family structure. You police gender roles. The left wants to turn black men gay and trans. The left doesn't want women to be ladylike anymore. What you're deliberately doing is conflating self-respect with respectability politics. They are not the same thing. Conservatism has done such a good job of blurring the line between self-respect and respectability politics that most folks don't even know the definition of the term. Having manners is not respectability politics. Carrying yourself with dignity and humility as well as showing respect to those in your community is not respectability politics. Black people have always held ourselves and each other with discipline, integrity, and pride despite centuries of systemic abuse.
Okay, that's just cap. Come on, gang. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. That now you just capped in the video, gang. Like, no, bruh. Can we be for real?
With discipline, integrity, and pride, despite
now, a small minority of black people do this. But the majority don't, bro.
Centuries of systemic abuse. These are core values of respect found within almost every human culture and not specific to any race or ethnicity. Respectability politics hijacks that concept of respect and weaponizes it. It argues that if marginalized groups did a better job of adhering to the cultural norms of those in power, then they'd be treated with dignity and gain social acceptance. If black people just got their act together, if we all spoke well enough, if we all dressed well enough, if we all tried to be like the quote-unquote good ones, then we'd finally be worthy of being treated like human beings.
Okay, I get where he's coming from with this one.
It reframes manners, discipline, and humility not as basic practices for personal and community strength, but as a checklist for conditional acceptance into white society. You end up with a way for black people to blame themselves for their own oppression.
What we need is a complete cultural reset. No more thug culture, but a nice, clean, pure culture. One that our freedmen ancestors would have wanted. If we don't give them a reason to be racist, then they won't be racist.
See, but my issue with that is you're using the fact that people were how can I say, okay, so this right here is what gets me, right? They'd be so proud. Our ancestors endured whips, chains, branding, flaying, dogs, guns, bombings, lynchings, just for you to pretend to be one of the good ones. Why couldn't they just get their act together, huh? I'm sure the ratchet ghetto behavior is the reason why they got discriminated against in the first place. No, that's real racism. That's real issues that niggas dealt with. But a lot of the shit that we deal with today is watered down shit. Like, I'm not going to say and pretend like racism and racial injustices don't occur. They do. Absolutely. I believe that. I see shit and I be like, yo, that's fucking crazy. But at the same time, think about what our people went through and think about how we're operating today. How have we grown from this? They went through all this, stood on business and said, you know what, regardless of what they think of me, I'm not going to be that. No matter how much you try to push me to be that. No matter how much you try to incite violence and all the other negative things you could do to me to make me act out my character, I'm not going to. Now, we just act out of character to act out of character, bro. There's lines on both sides. A lot of our people need to tighten up, but that doesn't mean conform to what the whites want. Okay, so now my question is, what is define conforming to what whites want? Explain that to me. What do you think conforming to what white wants is? What whites want is?
Would have wanted. If we don't give them a reason to be racist, then they won't be racist.
The sad part is, those that adhere to respectability politics never ended up seeing how futile it is. You can dress the part, speak the part, and live your whole life trying to be the quote-unquote good one, but no matter how carefully you perform, it doesn't grant immunity from racism. History has shown us again and again, educated black people, wealthy black people, church-going black people, hell, even literal children, all have faced the same violence, the same exclusion, the same suspicion, the same hatred, regardless of how well behaved they are. MLK and Malcolm X were literally murdered in suits. It didn't save them. It didn't save the residents of Tulsa. It didn't save Amantic Bradford Jr. It didn't save Philando Castile. It didn't save Elijah McClain. It didn't save Atiana Jefferson. It didn't save Botham Jean. It didn't save Henry Louis Gates Jr. It didn't save Christian Cooper. It didn't save Tamir Rice. It didn't save Sandra Bland. It didn't save Patrick Lyoya. It didn't save Jamel Robertson. It didn't save John Crawford III. It didn't save Ralph Yarl. It didn't save Keith Lamont Scott. It didn't save Corey Jones. It didn't save the Charleston 9. It didn't save the Buffalo 13. It didn't save Ayanna Stanley Jones. It didn't save Sean Bell. Every one of these people dressed quote-unquote properly, quote-unquote spoke properly, worked hard, followed rules, complied with police, achieved higher education, avoided quote-unquote street culture, lived and operated exactly how respectability politics demands black people to. They all quote-unquote had their act together, and yet were still surveilled, demonized, displaced, beaten, arrested, murdered, ignored, or destroyed. It's a permanent shifting of the goalpost. Respectability politics doesn't shield us, it simply shifts blame back onto the community when the oppression persists. But because respectability politics has been conflated with self-respect so well, you got niggas willing to go to war to defend it without even knowing the real definition. So you're just telling me we should let these folks act like buffoons? We should just let this degeneracy exist? You can't tell me it doesn't make us all look bad, not realizing that this logic right here is the problem. Nobody here is arguing against discipline, integrity, or accountability within our communities, or holding members accountable when they disrespect others. There's countless times where we've called out disrespectful, degenerate shit, especially when it disrespects our ancestors. What we're rejecting is the idea that black culture is the reason why racism exists. That logic is ass backwards. White supremacy didn't appear because black folks quote unquote didn't know how to act right, and it damn sure isn't disappearing if we all magically did. And let's be clear, every community has its degeneracy, especially white folks. Wall Street executives snorting coke, country music festivals, NASCAR, white frat parties, spring breakers, rodeos, Fred Durst, motorcycle rallies, January 6th, Eagles fans. But no one ever says those guys represent all white people, or that white respectability depends on silencing those behaviors. Only black folks are told that a few people's buffoonery condemns the whole race. That's not moral concern, that's anti-blackness.
Fair.
When you make the argument that we're the real black people, not those niggas, it doesn't shield you from racism, nor does it help the community. All it does is affirm a racist fantasy where they are the standard, and we are the ones that must constantly perform to disprove inferiority. And even inside that fantasy, you're not treated as an individual. You're just the designated responsible black. The one white people think should help manage and discipline the quote-unquote ghetto inner city blacks, they've already decided are beyond saving. It doesn't grant you respect. It just assigns you a different role in the same racist hierarchy. You not liking Sexy Red is one thing. You thinking she's tacky or trashy or vulgar, cool, that's fine. You have every right not to like her. But the minute you start blaming folks like Sexy Red as the reason why we can't get ahead, that's some shit.
So you don't think Sexy Red has a part to play in the fact that we're pushing these narratives? Like, see, this is where I get confused, because you called Sexy Red a raccoon. So by in turn, she's part of the reason why we're still struggling. Like, it don't make sense to me. Like, that doesn't make sense. You called her a raccoon. You agreed that what she was doing was essentially perpetuating the stereotypes that white people have about black people. But saying that, and saying that she is also the problem with black community is wrong? What?
See? This is what's destroying our people. Not crime bills, not redlining, not mass incarceration. Balloons and booty shorts. But here's the wildest and most disturbing irony. The people who—
He's saying being inherently ghetto isn't the problem. It's not the problem, but it's still a problem. Like there's not— it's like, I hate when niggas make shit seem like it's black and white. It's not. There's a bunch of different issues going on with the black community. Systematic racism absolutely is one of them. Mass incarceration is another one. Like you said, redlining. But to say that, yeah, well, that's a problem, but it's a problem we could deal with later. No, it's a problem that we could just deal with now, bro. Like, what?
cling to respectability politics know the double standard exists. They know black people are forced to quote-unquote perform good behaviors so one person's mistakes doesn't condemn the entire race. They know we get collective punishment while white people get treated as individuals. They'll even tell you plainly, look, that's just the way it is. But instead of questioning the system that makes that logic possible, instead of asking why black humanity is treated as conditional in the first place, why over 47 million people have to be collectively judged by the actions of a few, they turn the burden back on the community. They disguise it as accountability. They defend the double standard. They try to enforce it. They blame black people for the weight of that racist expectation. And that's the trap. The moment you accept the idea that the entire race lives or dies based on the behavior of the loudest, most foolish, ignorant among us, you've already agreed to an anti-black worldview. You're no longer challenging racism, you're helping enforce its rules. Respectability politics doesn't fight the system, it just tries to bargain with it. It tells us the world is anti-black, so let's contort ourselves into whatever shape offends whiteness the least, even though that shape has never protected a single black life. If we don't give them a reason to be racist, then they won't be racist. Step 1 is simple. Play into respectability politics using your platform to police other black people. You become the mouthpiece for white supremacy, repackaging its talking points in a quote-unquote community concern wrapper. Instead of challenging the system that dehumanizes us, you redirect the blame onto your own people, saying the problem isn't centuries of racism ingrained into policy and thought, it's how we carry ourselves. Regurgitate this junk, and the audience will come to you. However, that leaves us with step 2, preaching the gospel of personal responsibility. Once you've secured your socially conservative audience, the next move is to hammer home the idea that every problem black people face is a result of personal failure. Forget redlining, forget mass incarceration, housing, and medical discrimination. None of that exists in this framework. Instead, it's always about laziness, bad choices, and moral weakness. You know, personal responsibility. If step 1 was about performance, telling black folks to dress right, talk right, and act right to earn dignity, then step 2 is about internalizing failure when that performance doesn't magically end oppression. It goes from, if we act right, they'll treat us right, to, if things still don't get better after we act right, then we just didn't work hard enough. Your job is to use your platform to redirect every conversation about systemic barriers back to individual shortcomings. Use all the conservative talking points. If someone mentions housing discrimination, you pivot to, why don't they just save up to buy a house? If the cops shoot an unarmed kid in the back, you ask, well, why was he running away? Why didn't he just comply?
No, see, now that's where I agree with this nigga. That's fucking insane. Because certain things that, like, realistically shouldn't have to happen. Are you restocking ScumTK? Yeah, eventually. Realistically shouldn't have to happen aren't reasons to say, all right, well, you know, maybe you shouldn't have done this. Now, don't get me wrong. Each individual situation is different, right? Because I've seen shit where, all right, man, the cop is tweaking. And I've seen shit where it's like, nigga, what are you doing? Like, yo, gang, like, come on, bro. Any normal human being would be like, all right, this nigga's bugging.
Crime, fatherless homes. Poverty, bad financial choices. You should have gotten to crypto. Every structural critique becomes a sermon about discipline and morals.
Okay, and you said poverty, oh, you should have gotten to crypto, bad financial decisions. Some of these niggas make terrible financial decisions. That's just what it is. Like, that's the thing. Like, this video is perpetuating the idea that there's no, like, individual situations. It's all a collective thing that, all right, well, you know, yeah, granted, you are dealing with poverty, you're dealing with the negative reinforcements of the environment you grew up in, but it's a systematic issue. When sometimes niggas is niggas, bro. Like, we gotta understand that.
Though
Like,
every
what?
structural critique becomes a sermon about discipline and morals. That's why step 2 is so important for the grift. It doesn't just shift the blame, it keeps it shifted. It traps your audience in a loop where systemic oppression is never real, but personal failure always is.
Because I'm gonna be honest, like, he's mainly saying question the reason why you're poor. Okay, cool. Let's question the reasons why some niggas is poor. What do you spend your money on? What are you buying? What are you doing with your money? But the point is, people see us as a monolith instead of as individuals, and that's fine. Like, but my thing is, you can't say, oh, I want to judge each individual as an individual, and then say the reason why majority of individuals is dealing with a certain thing is because of the main issue, like systematic, like it's you're picking and choosing when something adheres to a system. You get what I'm saying? Like, you're saying, okay, well, it's bad to say that the reason why this brother is poor isn't because of systematic racism, but also I want them to treat each of us like individuals. If you're treating everybody like an individual, look at the instances of this nigga's life and say, hey, okay, maybe he was systematically oppressed. He's being like taken advantage of by the system. Or no, this nigga's just an idiot. Like, you feel me?
It's the perfect conservative alibi. If black people fail, then it's our fault. But if we succeed, then it's despite ourselves. Look, I don't want to hear about racism or history or systemic barriers. That's a victim mentality.
It's time to stop blaming everyone else but ourselves for our lives and our actions. I damn sure can't help what someone does to me, but I control 110% of how I move forward. White man this, racism that, enough. I promise you, the second you start focusing on yourself, your goals, your dreams, tunnel vision, and move forward, the faster life will progress for you and the happier you will become.
This is where you perfect the art of anecdote over evidence. I grew up poor and made it, so why can't they? Despite data and evidence showing that all the systemic barriers still remain. Black home ownership has barely moved in decades, despite wages increasing. Exclusionary zoning and land use laws still gatekeep black access, and black people still hold a disproportionately tiny share of institutional wealth and ownership across all industries. Don't worry though, a good chunk of your audience isn't really looking for stats or proof to begin with. You elevate bootstrap fairy tales as proof that inequality isn't structural, it's cultural. The genius of this step is that it reframes oppression as self-inflicted, absolving institutions of any sort of responsibility. It tells your audience that racism isn't systemic, it's just a glitch in black communities. And that's exactly the damage these talking points cause. It takes centuries of structural sabotage, predatory policing, discriminatory lending, underfunded schools, and reduces it to a matter of willpower. For black communities, you're hit with a double burden. Literally. In 1903, black American sociologist W.E.B. Du Bois proposed the idea of double consciousness. As a black person, you're forced to navigate the world twice over, once through your own lived reality, and once through the gaze of a society that pathologizes your very existence. Respectability politics and the gospel of personal responsibility sharpen that double vision into a wound. Not only do you have to survive the realities of discrimination, but you're also told it's your own fault when those barriers stop you from advancing. The effect is absolutely disgusting. It erases history, isolates individuals, and weaponizes shame as a political tool. Worse, it gives the institutions a free pass.
Okay, but gang, you want to isolate individuals. That's what you're arguing for. Because you made the argument earlier in the video that when white people do something, it's not all white people, it's that white people. But now you're saying that isolating individuals within the community is bad?
as a political tool. Worse, it gives the institutions a free pass. If poverty is reduced to just quote-unquote bad choices, then governments, banks, schools, and corporations never have to answer for the systemic violence they enact. But that's your role as a bootlicker, as a knight, as a... It's your job to ensure that these talking points never stay isolated in white conservative spaces, but circulate back into black communities as quote-unquote common sense. You become the courier of white supremacy dressed up in the language of tough love. Your platform becomes less about empowerment and more about enforcement, making sure that whenever structural critique arises, it gets drowned out by lectures on hustle, morality, and self-discipline. In this way, you don't just echo the system, you fortify it. We now move on to the third and final step, the one that everyone wants: platforming outrage and cashing out. Once you've amassed an audience of conservatives and gained their attention, you have to keep them hooked, and that's by feeding them non-stop outrage. Your digital platform becomes a stage show. Every tweet, reaction video, commentary, or Fox News appearance is designed to mock, scold, or call out black communities in ways that your audience finds entertaining and engaging. Police shoot another unarmed black kid? That's not tragedy, that's content. New rap song goes viral? Hell, you found some body cam footage or some random TikTok? That's your chance to rant about quote-unquote degeneracy and quote-unquote fatherless homes. You don't even need to believe it. The outrage machine doesn't care. All it requires is consistency. Social media isn't neutral. It's designed to amplify the loudest, most polarizing takes because outrage keeps people scrolling. Anger is addictive, and every platform has figured out that controversy is the most reliable fuel for engagement. The more rage you induce, the more visibility you get. The more visibility you get, the more your audience grows. And the bigger your audience, the bigger your paycheck. But the danger of this sensationalist slop is that it doesn't just stay online. It seeps into how entire communities are perceived. When algorithms reward these hollow, solutionless critiques of quote-unquote ghetto culture, broken families, or violent youth, those images become the shorthand for blackness in the wider public imagination. Politicians cite them to justify harsher policing. Employers use them as excuses not to hire. Teachers absorb them as biases against their own students. And worst of all, they drown out the real diversity, complexity, and humanity of black life. The spectacle of outrage becomes the dominant story, a loop of shame and scolding that reduces millions of people to the worst stereotypes for clicks and profits. What looks like content is actually cultural warfare, and every time it goes viral, it tightens the grip of white supremacy under the guise of quote-unquote honest critique. But at the end of the day, that's the whole point of a clip. If they see a black voice saying these things, it doesn't just confirm their biases, it sanctifies it. Suddenly, racist talking points don't look racist anymore. They look like truth because they're being delivered by someone who looks like the people being attacked. This is why media platforms love trotting these figures out. A Fox News panel on crime doesn't hit the same without a black commentator ready to scold their own community. A conservative op-ed about culture carries more weight when it's being penned by someone black. Even liberal outlets will platform these voices under the guise of quote-unquote balance, letting their audience consume stereotypes without guilt. The cycle is complete. Your outrage content feeds algorithms grow your audience makes you marketable to media outlets, and those outlets recycle your rhetoric into policy debates. In the end, your face becomes the mask white supremacy wears when it wants to speak with a black voice. However, if you've already made it this far to step 3, none of that should matter to you. You've already won. It's now time to cash out and enjoy the fruits of your labor. You've built a brand, secured media appearances, signed book deals, maybe even landed a podcast or a think tank fellowship. The damage to your community is irrelevant because the incentives don't reward care, they reward consistency. So what? Other black folks might call you a who cares? You got paid at the end of the day. They didn't. You put in the work to get to where you are, and that work definitely paid off. You made a career deliberately spreading harmful, inaccurate narratives about your own people for the sake of white approval and dollars.
I like that video.